number of constituents have expressed the concern that we're going to end up with two systems that are not fully interoperable. And to the extent that employers and financial institutions and other participants would be plugged into different systems, if they are not fully interoperable, there's a real concern that that is going to, at a minimum, diminish the ability to innovate in these systems going forward. So I guess I'm wondering if you could just briefly, because I do have several other topics, just address the question of whether it is a priority of the Fed to ensure that the FedNow system will be fully interoperable with the clearinghouse system.
I think full interoperability is the goal. It will be challenging to reach it, but it's high on our priorities to assure interoperability. It's something we're very focused on in the design stage.
Okay, and as I'm sure you're aware, the clearinghouse system is committed to having flat fees and not providing discounts for volume and the size of transactions, provided that the FedNow system does not provide those kinds of discounts. Can the Fed commit that it will have uniform pricing on this platform?
We haven't made that commitment, and it's not clear that that's what that the banks who really wanted us to do this are looking for.
Well, I would just, this is often cited as a reason why the Fed needed to do this, is because the private system might discriminate on the basis of price. So I think it is important that the clearinghouse system has volunteered. Clearly, they are happy to be regulated if need be to ensure that this would occur. It would be really ironic and a shame if it turns out that it's in fact the Fed that makes it more expensive for small banks to participate. So let me move on.
Welcome back to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, please like and subscribe. Like in my previous video, I advised that a lot of people are listening and not logged in, so they can't subscribe. So please log into your Gmail account so you can subscribe. Then we're going to go over the reason why cryptos are going to pump unbelievable this fall. Like 3, 4, 10 times, 100 times the price that it is now. And it all has to do with the transition from the fiat over to blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Now, you just listened to Toomey, and Senator Toomey, and he went over something very, very important. And he touched on how the small bank with this new system would be charged higher fees than the big banks. So, of course, when we look at the Fed repo, we see the dealers, and those are JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. They get to charge a fee for loaning to the other banks to keep liquidity. Now, as you can see, Powell said, I don't know whether the banks want to do that or not. So Powell clearly knows that that's what's going to happen. The small banks are about to be eaten up by the big banks. Now, like I stated in my previous videos, I worked for the banks. So in 2008, majority of your credit unions are actually ran by regular banks. And a lot of you don't know that. They have credit union like networks now that are ran by actual banks. So they actually got swallowed up. And this time around, you're not going to have not one small bank. And remember, I told you that. You're only going to have big banks, and it may be only about 3 or 4 left as far as what the banking industry goes. As far as what I'm talking about the United States. And globally, you may have 15 at the most. Because basically, once we go through this process of them killing the US dollar, that's going to automatically kill these banks. Plain and simple. Because basically, once you go over to digital currencies, how are these banks going to make money? They're not going to be able to stay alive. Plain and simple, because you have no reason to go to the bank. Now that you have Venmo, Cash App, there's not going to be any reason for you to go to a bank, your direct deposit. So this is all a planned demolition. Now, you're in the perfect place as far as with cryptocurrencies, because right now no one understands. And I want you to make sure that you understand something. The masses are not in cryptocurrencies yet. Once the masses come into cryptocurrencies, that's going to drive the price down. A lot of people think because the masses are going to come into cryptocurrencies, that's going to drive the price up. No, that's going to drive the price down. Now, Bitcoin, Ethereum, their price will go up just because you're looking at, and also like VeChain, their prices will go up because VeChain is basically based off supply, Ethereum is contracts, and then Bitcoin is just speculation and value. So that will go up. But the rest of these cryptos, as far as payment processes and gambling and all different types of things, those are going to be dropped down. Even though they have utility, they still want to be cheap. Because, of course, right now the dollar is valued very high. You're going to have deflation. Because right now we're in an inflationary market. You're going to have deflation. And I'm talking about going back to penny candy. Because they have to do that. Because they have to do a reset. And that's the reason why these cryptos are so important, because they actually really don't exist. It's just some digits. So you can throw somebody 1,000 cryptos a month and make that their paycheck and just give it to them. You actually will be able to do that. But we're going to listen to the next video, and I'll be right back.
Greatest threat to the financial system. You talk to many of us in private about cyber issues, and you said it yesterday over on the House side. I don't think it's breaking through. Can you summarize for us why you're awake at night worried about cyber attacks on our financial system?
Sure. So they kind of pay us to be awake at night worrying about things. And I would say that if you look at what happened in the financial crisis, we had a game plan there. We implemented it over the course of 10 years. I won't say that it's perfect or anything like that, but we have a plan that is meant to address those kinds of things. What's new in the threat environment is the ongoing level of cyber threat and the increasing sophistication of it. And so that's what we spend a ton of time worrying about that. And the Treasury Department has really been taking the lead on that. And I think we have, so we're very focused on it. We're focused on making sure that the financial institutions that we supervise are doing the best that they can to stay at the state of the art. Good cyber hygiene. It turns out that a lot of these things are just people failing to implement, updating their software and things like that. That's where a lot of breaches happen. So, I mean, it's an intense focus by supervisors and by financial institutions, also by non-regulated, non-financial institutions, companies that are in, all kinds of businesses are having this now. It's an enormous focus. We'll never say that it never feels like we've done enough, but it's just something we keep trying to get better and better at. Lots of resources on it in all the agencies and in all the companies.
And if you'd concretize for it,
get too much into it, I would just say that confidence in the financial system is really important. The public has to have confidence in the financial system, and so a successful cyber attack on a payments utility, for example, would be challenging. We could address that, we could isolate it, we could fix it, but you would want to avoid somehow broader blows to confidence, because when confidence weakens, people will take their money out, they will stop acting and things like that. Uncertainty and lack of confidence are the enemy of economic activity and growth.
All right, guys, and I'm back here, and basically you just finished listening to Ben Sacy. Now, that was a comment as far as with the cyber attacks. Now, remember I did a video on the scenarios that are being laid out. You have the economy at its all-time high, which we know is not true, just the Fed pumping the stocks. We have the coronavirus, and we have cyber attacks. So basically, those are the three scenarios that can bring down the economy, which will bring a rise to the digital currencies. So the cyber war is going to be very important. Now, remember, China came out and stated that, and Russia stated that the United States is responsible for the coronavirus. Then you had the United States say that China is using the coronavirus as a biological weapon. Then you had Equifax, who stated that these 3 or 4 Chinese military guys hacked into Equifax. So it was the Chinese. So these scenarios are being set up. So if you're going to do a scenario, you want to have plan A, plan B, and plan C. So they have 3 scenarios where they can go. They can just automatically just plunge the economy. They can go the virus route, or they can go the cyber attack, cyber war. Because there's not going to be any more physical wars anymore. These are going to be cyber and biological wars, weather. So we have to look at this as a whole. Like I stated, of course, we're in crypto, but all these mechanisms affect cryptocurrencies. As we can see, anytime that we have any issues as far as with the global economy, the cryptos go up. When everything is good, everything is fine, there's nothing going on, cryptos are stable or they drop. But anytime that you see a effect in the economy that's outside the normal realm, like the cyber attacks, the virus, the repo market, all of a sudden Bitcoin and the rest of the cryptos go up. So I just want to make sure that we understand that volatility is going to make Bitcoin get to that 50, 100,000, and which it will. And I'm going to discuss that, in my final part. But we're going to move to the next video, and I'll be right back.
Ask you this: the debt's at 23 trillion right now. Isn't that about right? Something like that.
Yes.
At what point in time do you get concerned? I mean, I think the budget the president just put out is another trillion to the debt.
It's very hard to say at what level you get concerned. I would say I'm be concerned now it's really the level, the rate of increase is what we need to do is have the debt grow slower than the economy is growing. If the economy is growing faster than the debt, then effectively leverage is going down. So debt to GDP won't be. What's happening is debt to GDP is going up and going up fairly quickly as these things move. Other countries have managed to get to very high levels, much more than ours. But what it means is that 20 years from now, we'll be spending those tax dollars. Our children will be spending those tax dollars on servicing the debt rather than on the things that they really need. Right. We're sending them those bills.
All right, guys, and I'm back. Basically, that was Mr. Senator Tester asking Powell about the actual debt. Now, Powell ends the statement saying that we are sending. No, it's not we. It's the central banks providing all this debt to make you a debt slave. Now, let's go over the debts. We have student loans at $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion. A student loan. We have auto loans, the highest ever, $1.2 trillion. 1.2 trillion auto loans. Credit card debt, $930 billion, the highest ever. Now, guys, when it comes to business, it's liabilities versus assets. And all 3 of those are liabilities. All 3. So basically, when you look at the banking system, they created inflation. Now, of course, your parents, grandparents, they'll tell you, hey, I went to college for $2,000. Go to that same college, it may be 15,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 now. That's imaginary inflation. That's all it is. Same thing with cars. You might have paid $5,000 for a car, that same car, and look at the material the cars are made out of now. They're $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 for a car. Credit card debt, because basically you're sold as far as with being a consumer. You always have the carrot in front of your face, and you want to buy. So you constantly getting yourself into debt. So the reason why cryptocurrencies are going to come in, because they really don't exist. And then on top of it, they'll still be able to tax you. Tax every single dollar. And that's what they're going to do. So if you made $1,000, believe me, there's no way of getting around reporting that you only made it $200. Because they will be able to track and see every single dollar. They're not going to pay you any privacy coin, and most likely they're going to make laws as far as the privacy coins, Monero and Dash, all those privacy coins out there, they're going to make some type of law about it. So you better believe that. But they're going to be able to use it. Believe me. They're not going to let us see their payments. I'll tell you that right now. Because we know that the government is the biggest drug running, gun running ever existed. So we have to make sure that we're in it to win it. Now, is anything wrong with this? I have nothing against the Fed. I have nothing against the government. But what I'm saying is that basically you must open your eyes, so therefore you make sure that your family and friends are taken care of. Because the fact is that basically if you don't, you're going to get the backlash. Get yourself out of debt. We've become debt slaves from always wanting something that has no meaning to impress other people that don't like us or we don't like them. So, guys, I'm going to leave you with Governor Warner. And he's going to talk more about crypto. But, guys, please like and subscribe. Make sure you're logged in so you can subscribe. Don't forget I have the Cryptoteacher book on Amazon, also on btcteacher.com. I also have where you can buy your digital assets, Coinbase, Binance, Bitrue, and then also you can get your stocks from Robinhood. Remember, everything is going to have a chip in it. And you enjoy the video from Warner. And you have a great day. Thanks for listening.
Yesterday, in your testimony, you talked about this movement towards digital currency, something I'm very interested in. And you indicated, it's possible that there might be a United States-backed digital currency. We have the possibility of doing that. The question I question is, would that be desirable? How do we, I get the component parts around a digital currency might provide convenience and potentially even lower friction cost in terms of credit to consumers. But how do we weigh in privacy and cyber concerns? How would that deal with our retail banking system? And do you think the Fed has the capacity to do this without congressional approval? Fill out a little bit more, and then I've got one last question about China's role in this space. But talk to me first about the domestic implications.
Sure. So you listed the potential costs and benefits. The benefits would include, perhaps greater financial inclusion, lower costs, more convenience, and all those things. The risks or costs would include cyber risk and fraud risk and privacy risk and things like that. So I think there's a lot to weigh and a lot to work on there. Every major central bank in the world right now is doing a deep dive on digital currencies, and we think it's our responsibility to be at the very forefront of knowledge and thinking about a central bank digital currency.
Would you take a positive action on that without congressional input? Do you feel like you have that authority?
So it would depend a lot on the design choices. It's a good question. One that we're working on. I'd say we're working very broadly, including working with other central banks around the world on this. And There's just a lot of thinking and experimentation and understanding that we're gaining. And if there's a need for, if we conclude that we need more authority and that this is something appropriate to do, then we'll ask for the authority.
Well, one of the things you mentioned yesterday, and I can share Senator Sass and a number of us who are on the Intel community concern about the rise of China in a series of areas, and I think it is clear that China may move quicker than us on a digital currency. You said you've got some visibility into what China might be doing on digital currency. I'd love you to spell that a little bit. Do you think they'll use their influence through their kind of Belt and Road investment strategy and the number of countries that have kind of bought into that system, that they might be then also buying into that Chinese digital currency? What would that do in terms of cross-border? What would that do in terms of dollar supremacy? Any further guidance you might have on your insight into China's actions in this space would be helpful.
I would just say we have to assume that what would that mean? We have to ask the question, what would it mean if China had a digital currency that had fairly wide adoption, including 2 other countries? We've got to ask that. I think we've also got to ask, what if a private sector entity, a large company with a large network of users has a digital currency? So we're looking.
That's already popped out, and I think we had pretty bipartisan concerns on that one.
So that's why we're doing all this work. We understand I would say Libra was something of lit a bit of a fire. This is something we've been focused on digital currencies for a couple decades, but it's really lit a fire around the world right now. So we are doing a great deal of work.
My time's up. I